Welcome to One Good Thing Media, your official podcast review channel. We search the vast digital landscape on a daily basis to discover the best shows that podcasters have to offer. Are you ready to discover new favorites to add to your playbook? Stay tuned and listen to host Gerald Spears' latest podcast reviews.
Hi, loves. Welcome to our One Good Thing Media podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 24. My name is Gerald Spear, and I'm the host and creator of our show. If you love film noir, you are going to be head over heels for this episode that we have dubbed Audio Noir. In that respect, we're going to be covering two modern-day shows that have the appeal of old-time radio, plus a podcast that specializes in original detective shows that took place from 1940 to 1951. Before we get going, I would like to play a recap for you that explains who we are and what we do. I'm doing this because our position in the podverse is so rare that a lot of people are saying, now what is it you do? One Good Thing Media is unique to the podcasting world. We celebrate and review outstanding podcasts in several popular genres, and we encourage listeners to check them out. We've chosen to be an independent media outlet that features shows from every network conceivable and all independent podcasts. And for the sake of clarity and continuity, we focus on featuring one genre per week in our main section where we provide reviews. If you have a favorite show that you want us to listen to, don't hesitate to reach out to us at onegoodthingmedia@gmail.com. And now I say, let's get on with the news. My first bit of news today involves the deep dive with hosts and comedians Jessica St. Clair and June Diane Raphael. It's a new talk show podcast that debuted in April 2024. Behind the scenes, I've been following this weekly podcast for a couple of months in order to ensure that the deep dive wasn't just another snooze fest, or in PC terms, a typical talk show. Here is part of the description. I'm going to be reading this. The ladies take a deep dive into their real lives and discuss a wide range of topics, including how to pursue joy amidst the insanity of motherhood and family, grief and loss, the SH*T they put on their faces, and why they refuse to check their voicemails or unpack their suitcases. Up to that point, not too surprising, really kind of edging towards a typical podcast talk show. But the actual show content is anything but. I want to play some clips for you of this show, which is so refreshing, irreverent, and funny that everyone should tune in to at least one episode. So I'm playing the trailer for you, and then I'm going to play a short clip of my favorite episode thus far, which is Pro Millennial with Kate Kennedy. Trigger warning, the ladies are absolutely irreverent with naming body parts and activities.
Hi, I'm Jessica St. Clair.
And I'm June Diane Raphael.
And this is
The Deep Dive.
We're about to do what women have done for centuries. We're crowding around the fire with our generous haunches. We got babies hanging off our tits, and we're going to share with you our fears.
That's right, our joys.
Our tips on how to stay alive.
Now, Jess, we are heeding a call that no one has made.
Not a soul, but you're invited to listen.
Absolutely, because we make one promise and one promise only. We will not Google a thing.
Because frankly, we're too damn tired.
Please get ready to go on The Deep Dive. No, and listen, have I been told to get on a mood stabilizer? Yes, and I think that's been really great advice.
I have jumped out, not of one, but many moving vehicles.
And I do think, this has to do with the ancestors.
Yeah.
And the witches that were burned. And
right.
Our
I just said right, like everyone's on board. Because we are going to do a podcast about witches.
Institutionalized and seen as crazy for having feelings and speaking their mind, that something happens when I'm told to calm down. It's like, sweetie, we're in a fucking house together.
If after the release of this podcast, you get a report that June and I have been arrested for public nudity in Joshua Tree, a GoFundMe for the bail money would be appreciated. Not necessary, but appreciated.
The next clip involves a discussion about the differences between Gen Xers and millennials.
Well, and that's something you talked about that I thought was really interesting was you were the first generation for parents to say you can be anything. You're special, right? You're special. I remember in Matilda, they have that, the opening of Matilda is about all the parents saying like, you're so special. And, really they're all monsters. But in our generation, our parents, right, were boomers. So it wasn't about that. It was like, you're going to grow up and you're going to get a job in a corporation like your father did and work for 35 years at the same place. And so we had to like fight to feel special, right? It was, I had to to get out of my cocoon of like, I need to have a 9-to-5 job was like, it was a Herculean effort. And when I did, my parents were like, you are ruining not just your life, but ours. We've been working so hard to get to be upper middle class. And now you're going to destroy it by wanting to pursue your passion. Right. But so you guys were a little different because your parents said you were special and all of this, but then really culture was saying something different, which was hide your true self. Be like everything you see in the mall. Am I understanding that dichotomy?
Yeah, I think that it's so interesting because first of all, you're a parent, like may we all be told we are special. Like, it's so funny to code that as a bad thing. Like, what a gift to have your parents believe in you unequivocally. But also, I think that popularity was just like such a currency, and it was very homogenous. Like, everything was about following the in crowd, and uniqueness wasn't valued in the way it is now. Now I really do observe young people on the internet, and uniqueness is a currency that it simply wasn't when I was growing up. In that, to blend in meant to stand out, and I think that it's interesting. My parents are boomers too, but my dad, when I was growing up, was like toward the end of his career, and he was kind of like, this was like 30+ year grind, and like, what, he was kind of like, if you can find something you actually like, do that. And I think there was maybe more of a younger boomer burnout phase, maybe paired with the information age where we had more opportunities and being like, yeah, why not pursue it? Like, I think
the idea of being an entrepreneur is new to your generation, right? Because for us, it was like, no, you don't do that. You work for a corporation.
Yeah, I think we were all very taken with Shark Tank, honestly.
I mean, if it can...
I failed to mention this at the beginning of the show, but this particular The Deep Dive is by Limonada. Limonada has some of the most refreshing, bright podcasts, and they continue to add to them. You have to be a little discerning. Some of them are pretty opinionated, but all in all, it's a good place to shop shows. And by the way, The Deep Dive is a very common name for podcasts, so make sure that you choose the one with two gals on the cover with big, curly, lavender/purple hair and the Limonada logo. My next bit of news is about how to talk to an AI to get the best results. Microsoft just sent me an email that talks about how to prompt, get the right context, get exactly what you want sooner. If you're having trouble with AI or just would like to do what you do better, send me an email at onegoodthingmedia@gmail.com and I will forward their information to you. This week's episode is brought to you by Who Gives a Crap, makers of the most eco-friendly toilet paper, paper towels, and other related goods on the planet. Using Who Gives a Crap products saves thousands of trees. including southern yellow pines and Douglas firs, from needlessly being chopped down every day. Our family has been exclusively using Who Gives a Crap bamboo toilet paper for several years. Our paper orders arrive promptly, and even during times of shortages, and we do remember the last one and what happened, we had no trouble stocking our home with toilet paper and paper towels. Please give a crap by clicking the link in our show notes to take better care of our planet and save some bucks too. FYI, 50% of all profits made by this company are donated to help build sanitation systems in third world countries, hence saving many innocent people who would otherwise die of diseases caused by human waste. Gerald. Oh no, not you again. What are you listening to? Are you spying on me? AIs, you can't trust them. But yes, welcome to What Are You Listening To, a segment where I share what I've binged this week, and it's a good one. This week I listened to an entire season of Shattered Souls, The Car Barn Murders. And check this out, it was for the second time. I originally listened to it about 18 months ago, and honestly, it was just as good the second time around, particularly because I picked up on details that I didn't the first time. Because like most people, or at least I hope like most people, about every 20 minutes my mind travels to the Bahamas or whatever I need to do that day, right down to what I should add to my grocery list. But I'm not gone long, maybe 30 seconds at most. But it does leave micro bits of information missing. The reason why I chose this particular show is because not only is it well crafted, but it meets my unrequited need for mystery. I love mysteries. And quite frankly, I think I'm probably addicted to them. I was introduced to this irresistible genre, at least to me, when I was just a little kid. I loved spending Saturday afternoons devouring Nancy Drew, Dana Girls, Hardy Boys, or even Sherlock Holmes mysteries. And of course, all the scholastic mysteries that my parents bought for me to read over the summer. Shattered Souls takes you through all the twists and turns of a very complicated mystery before finally reaching a satisfying conclusion. I stress that because the mystery we're talking about happened in 1935 and was opened for the last time long after all of the witnesses had died, all of the police officers were dead, all of the family members who were alive at that time were also gone, and much of the case itself in terms of paperwork and files were missing. Shattered Souls is a true story that's narrated by forensic detective Karen Smith, who is the hero of this story and the great-great-niece of the victim. The podcast gives a blow-by-blow of her investigation, and along the way, you gain insights into her family ancestors and, in some aspects, her current family dynamics. Here's a great clip from the show.
Out of a movie.
I don't want a single word written about that case. Do you understand?
Welcome to Season 2 of Shattered Souls. I'm your host, Karen Smith. This podcast contains graphic language and is not suitable for children.
There's a possibility it could be solved one day.
Cover-ups, secret meetings, gangsters, bootleggers, prison snitches, murder. This season has all of the plot points of a film noir, a fictional Hollywood screenplay, but everything I'm going to tell you is factual. We're going to go back in time this season, before the Great War, before suburbia, and picket fences, and television. This was the time of the Great Depression, during Franklin Delano Roosevelt's New Deal, when Prohibition had just ended and people were struggling to make ends meet. Gangsters and rackets had taken over the major cities, and mob boss Al Capone, well, he was sent from Atlanta to Alcatraz. The date of this case was January 21st, 1935. Two men were killed that morning, and both of them worked for the Capital Transit Company in Chevy Chase, Maryland. James Mitchell was an accounting clerk and had been employed there for nearly 40 years. Lawrence Emery Smith, he went by Emery, worked as a mechanic and a watchman for 15 years. The case quickly became known as the Car Barn Murders. It's the oldest cold case in Montgomery County, Maryland. Both of their lives would end tragically on the same day, but in separate locations, which was a conundrum for the detectives in charge. For the better part of 86 years, this case file has sat on a shelf in a basement collecting dust. There were some follow-ups over the years, some new revelations, but it remains unsolved. And that's where I come into the story. This wasn't a random case that I chose to investigate. This case came to me because Lawrence Emery Smith was my great-great-uncle. Learning that your own family member was the victim of a horrendous murder, no matter how far removed that person is personally from you, it's a punch in the gut. And you add to that fact that the case is still unsolved, and you personally have the knowledge and experience to try to solve it, well, it becomes compulsory. But there's a lot more to that story.
The most chilling moment in Shattered Souls, at least to me, was when Karen Smith discovered photographs of the victims in the dusty files. She stared at one photo for a few seconds before realizing that she was looking at a photo of her great-great-uncle laying on a slab at the coroner's office, covered up to his neck with a sheet and a bullet wound in his head. When she shared that information as an aside to the investigation, I forgot to breathe for about 3 seconds. This particular series goes for 17 episodes, and again, start your journey with episode 1, The Oldest Cold Case. Now, with that said, once you're done with that, there are a lot of other stories included in this podcast that Karen Smith recounts based on the diaries that she kept during her lengthy tenure as a forensic detective. Now let's get to our main attraction. Today we are featuring Audio Noir. We have 2 hard-boiled detective podcasts that we're recommending, as well as one other that actually specializes in old-time detective shows from approximately 1940 to 1951. Let's get in the mood, shall we? Imagine it's the 1940s. You've just gone to see the Maltese Falcon, and it's so hard to separate yourself from the movie. And in that intoxicating reality, a femme fatale could almost take down a good detective with a flick of her eyelash. Alrighty, now that we're in the mood, it's time to preview some great shows. My first audio noir detective podcast that I'm sharing with you today is called Detectives Don't Sleep. It's by Noiser and features host Mark Dodson, who has just the right amount of gravel in his voice and a flawless deadpan delivery. He is perfect for this podcast. Detectives Don't Sleep features different legendary detectives throughout history. So one particular episode may happen in 1925, another one in 1984, another one in 1885, but each one features a well-known detective in their time, with most of them being forgotten as history marches on. And although they come from different eras, their commonalities are profound. They don't rest until they nab their culprits and close their cases, of course. They rely on their keen understanding of human nature, and at least in the stories included in this podcast, they always get their man. Or woman, depending. The episodes have classic names, which I really get a kick out of. They're all reminiscent of hard-boiled detective books, with names like The Case of the Pickled Corpse, Jigsaw John, and Murder on the Moscow Express. Today I'm going to be playing a clip from the episode called The Diamond Heist Sweethearts, a crime that happened in 1925. Are you ready? Good. Here we go.
It's Friday, February the 20th, 1925, in Baltimore, Maryland. We're at the Maryland State Penitentiary and the prison's shoe and boot workshop. In this era, the state pen is run as an industrial facility. There's an iron foundry, a print shop, carpet weaving and clothing factories, as well as workshops for stone cutting and license plates manufacture. Not to mention the chain gangs that get taken out to break rocks and build roads. The prisoners are a cheap and freely available resource that the authorities farm out to private enterprise. Health and safety, that's not a priority. 24-year-old inmate Richard Reese Whitmore knows all about the injuries you can sustain working in this place. It wasn't so long ago that he burned his arm on the electric iron used to smooth out shoe leather. The wound still hasn't healed, and he has to go every afternoon to the prison hospital to get the dressing changed. What the guards don't know is that the injury was self-inflicted. You see, this is Whitmore's second stretch in the Maryland pen. He knows his way around the prison, and he knows that the hospital is the weakest link in the prison security, which is why he deliberately burned himself and made sure it was bad enough to need hospital treatment. After serving his first sentence, Whitmore had been on the outside for less than a year before he was incarcerated again. And now he's facing 15 years for his part in the armed robbery of a diamond salesman. There's no way he's going to spend the next 15 years ironing shoe leather. He's got a wife on the outside, Margaret. She's a good-looking girl. He tortures himself thinking about what she's getting up to while he's behind bars. Just after 2 p.m., the door to the shoe workshop opens. Willie Green, the trustee assigned to take Whitmore to the hospital, comes in. A trustee is a prison inmate who's shown himself to be reliable and earned extra privileges. Whitmore puts down his iron and goes with Green. As they cross the yard, Whitmore sees a pile of building waste waiting to be cleared. Green is walking a few paces in front with his back to Whitmore. Whitmore quickly checks the guard at the next checkpoint. He's looking away. So is the guard behind him. This is his opportunity.
Listen to Detectives Don't Sleep to get your fill of hard-boiled detectives who relentlessly hunt the bad guys. My second review for today is Greetings from Salton Sea, and it is a mind-bending journey into the depths of traumatized memory and the underbelly of a dying California desert town. It has to do with a twin who is called back to where he was raised, which was the Salton Sea area, to retrieve the remains of his twin brother who disappeared 20 years prior to him getting this call. And mixed into this story, which is why I'm including it, is an absolutely insane detective who does all manner of weirdness and actually at the same time is helping him solve his mystery about what happened to his brother. Wholly entertaining. It's a limited series. You'll be able to zip through it in a day or two. I'm going to play a clip right now which includes the detective character and his interactions with Kellen, the surviving twin. Oh, and I have to warn you, Frank, the detective, has a foul mouth. So if cursing, especially the F-bomb, bothers you, I do not recommend this show for your sensitive ears. Otherwise, here we go.
Rucker! Wakey, wakey! No! What's got your shorts in a twist?
I thought you were going to pour ice water on my head again.
Do I strike you as a repetitious sort, Rucker? Besides, these floors are the original 1950s hardwood. Don't want them to warp. Gotta respect more than a half century of foot traffic.
This place is a dump.
Nah, it's got character. Ambiance.
Venetian blinds, scar oak desk, metal file cabinet, piles of paper, and inch-thick dust on every available surface. A baked-like telephone desk, where the hell did you find that? Manila folders, really? When everything these days is computerized and digital?
For my clientele, this scene harkens back to a simpler time.
To when dinosaurs roamed the earth?
To when Raymond Chandler packed heat, wore a snap-brim hat, and beat the pavement on behalf of his at-their-wits-end clients. Now that was one class-act, hard-boiled private dick.
Philip Marlowe.
What?
Chandler was the writer. Marlowe was the dick. Like Frankenstein was the doctor, and the reanimated monster was just a monster.
You been hitting the booze again, Rucker? I step out to do an errand, and you hop-skip it down to the corner liquor store like an alky with the shakes?
Why would I need to go out? Don't you have a cliched half bottle of scotch stashed in your file cabinet?
Did you take a look? Here's what's in here.
I should have guessed.
Want a hit?
I'm good, Frank. What'd you do with my rental car? Push it into a pit of hydrochloric acid? Sneak it into a junkyard car crusher?
Oh, don't be such a drama queen, Rucker. I returned it to where you got it from. The rental lot at Palm Springs International Airport. Then I took a cab back here. I didn't fill the gas tank before I dropped the rental up, though, so be prepared for that inflated line item on your credit card tab.
Along with your 45-minute cab ride?
Ooh, that sure fired up the old gray cells. You're missing out, Rucker. This is the same rarefied air the Greek gods sucked into their lungs up on Mount Olympus. Don't fret, boyo. I commandeered a cab. I didn't hire one.
You carjacked a taxi cab?
Nah, I merely flashed my shield and said, "Drive, motherfucker!" And 40 minutes later, here I am.
Because the cab driver thought you were a cop.
Not my fault. I never identified myself as such. Still works with cabbies. With Uber drivers, not so much. Did you have a look-see at your brother's file?
No, not yet. I was resting my eyes.
Still exhausted from a long night of boozing, fucking, and strangling, huh?
I told you I didn't kill her. I never hurt anybody in my life. Except myself.
Sorry. My bad. I don't want to push you in the direction of a psychotic break, Rucker. I want to string you along for a couple more days so I can collect the max per diem. Okay?
Yeah, okay.
Check out Greetings from Salton Sea when you have time. It's a great romp with plenty of twists and turns. to wrap up the show today with some authentic, original detective shows that were on the radio from 1940 to about 1951. And in that genre, there is one podcast that stands out above all the rest. The Great Detectives Presents. It's actually a medley of different podcasts by the same name, but a special detective attached to each one. The Great Detectives Presents Nick Carter. The Great Detectives Presents Philip Marlowe, and several others. The host, whose name is Adam Graham, also has one of his Great Detectives Presents as a medley of different shows. So check them out. There's just a ton of them. But before you do, I do have one small caveat that you should be aware of. Adam is personable, nice, fun. He loves his subject matter, but he is not your typical podcast host. As a matter of fact, he sounds more like a ham operator than a podcaster. Now, I'm not putting him down, it's just who he is. So when you're listening to his shows, give him some grace and enjoy the programs that he puts on. If you don't want to listen to him, that's fine. Just fast forward to the radio program and you'll be good to go. I know I said one caveat, but I just thought of something else. For all of you who have never listened to old radio shows, don't be surprised when the actors overact, sort of like chewing the scenery, except they can't have the scenery because it's radio. And the sound quality is pretty creaky. But, and there's always a but with me it seems, if you really take it all into context, it is part of the atmosphere. Here's a clip. This one is about Nick Carter, the detective, and the title of this episode is The Body on the Slab.
You hold this light while I... Get your hands up, both of you. Well, I'll be... And drop that knife you got in your hand, Bill. How can you be awake when we... Really very simple, Bill. Keep those hands up. I just poured that drink you gave me on the floor instead of down my throat. What are you going to do with us? I'm going to turn you over to the police. The evidence of the bloody clothes in the closet and what other evidence they'll undoubtedly find when they search this place, you both should have an interesting time of it. Why don't you kill us now and be done with it? Because I want some information first. Why should we tell you anything? Because if you do, I shall probably be able to get your sentence reduced somewhat. If you don't... I got you. What do you want to know? Last night, a young man won all your money. He hasn't been seen since. You mean that fellow with the little mustache? I do. You murder him the way you tried to murder me? I didn't know nothing with him. Maybe I wanted to, but I didn't. Isn't it a fact that this chap's friend tried to get him to leave you and go home?
Nick Carter always talks so fast, it's no wonder that Jack Webb sounds like him too. FYI, Jack Webb, who originated Dragnet, started his career in radio. La 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 la. They fire their words off like a machine gun. Before I go, I want to thank Martin Landstrom, who played the sax so sweetly. He had such wonderful phrasing, didn't he? And the name of his song was Lurking in the Shadows. I hope everybody has a wonderful week. We are going to be back next Tuesday at 3 a.m. Mountain Time. So whenever you wake up, chances are just about 90% that we'll be there waiting for you. Bye, loves.
One Good Thing Media is brought to you by our host and creator, Gerald Spear. All things technical are by David Dodd, and our announcer is Robert Spear. Our theme song for Season 2 is Force by HGST.